A handyman who lied repeatedly.
Okay.
Can I get an officer out here?
911, what's the address again?
It's a lady laying in the pool. Well, ma'am, she's dead.
A prison snitch who tells a story filled with contradiction.
You ever been convicted of a felony or crime of dishonesty?
Yes, ma'am, about 40 times.
40 times?
That doesn't mean they're incapable of giving valuable information.
She fell, and then he said he checked on her a little bit later and realized what had happened and said he didn't mean to kill her.
And of course, a golf club that mysteriously appears in the master bedroom after a controversial death.
Could this be our murder weapon?
Nope, not this.
Samira Frash's life was filled with gold and glitz until it took a dark and sinister turn.
I joked about this morning. I said, if it was me, they're gonna have to be looking for the killer because my hand will be still wrapped around her neck like that right there. And that's the truth.
What's the address again?
Ma'am, can I get an officer out here? It's a lady laying in the pool.
Is she awake?
No, ma'am, she's at the bottom of the pool.
You don't want to jump in and try and get her out?
Well, ma'am, she's dead.
On a chilling morning of February 22nd, 2014, the police department received a mind-blowing call from a guy believed to work as a gardener in one of the most magnificent houses in Golden Eagle. This call, however, brought about one of the most heartbreaking cases ever. Moments ago, he claimed to have seen a woman fall into the pool, but would not do anything to bring her out.
And then I looked again, there was Samira laying right there, and then I got scared. You know, and I know it was her. I got scared to talk, and I went and called cops.
After this unusual 911 call, authorities weren't sure what to expect as they arrived at the Frash's flamboyant home in Golden Eagle that same day. As authorities pulled up to the house, they were welcomed by the most terrifying scene. This horrible scene left a puzzling question in their hearts. Tragically, the 38-year-old model, Samira Frash, who once had it all, laid still on her back at the bottom of the pool, wearing nothing but an open leopard print robe when the authorities found her, and she was obviously dead.
They see the victim, she's on her back, but she was pronounced deceased almost upon arrival at the hospital.
But what we are going to uncover no one was expecting. Her husband, Adam Frash, a successful doctor, and their 2 daughters were nowhere to be found. This immediately struck a chord in the heart of the authorities as they dug deeper into this mystery.
Adam and the children were not at the house.
So this case kind of took on 2 prongs immediately.
At first glance, there was no need to suspect foul play. People do have accidents around the swimming pool after all, especially while trying to get the little dog who just escaped down the back door, or so they thought. But on a second look at the body, they find out it was all staged to make it look like an accident.
You see a woman's flip-flop is laying underneath a hose. You find the other flip-flop just a couple feet away, and it just didn't seem right. It just looks completely staged. And it seemed like there was foul play.
But it was far from that. This was a murder. Not just any murder, but one with a premeditated staging to cover up the actual crime. This was, however, the first murder of its kind in Golden Eagle, a luxurious neighborhood built around the golf course.
We have to locate them, and we had to investigate a drowning. It's February in North Florida.
This indeed was going to be one of the biggest cases ever.
I remember the story coming across my desk that there was a death at Golden Eagle. We were just kind of surprised. Things don't happen in such a affluent community. I had a feeling it was going to be a big story.
Disturbed and not having any idea of what had actually transpired at the Frash's house, investigators apprehended several suspects in the quest for answers and to delve into the heart of the perpetrator of this gruesome evil. Hence, their number 1 suspect was the caller, Gerald Gardner. After much interrogation, it turned out that Gerald was clearly afraid, and he didn't want his DNA on her body.
And then I looked again, there was Samira laying right there, and then I got scared. You know, and I know it was her. I got scared to talk, and I went and called cops.
Joe?
I told them, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to touch it. I didn't go back down there, but I went back down there with officers. And I was scared. I didn't know what was going to happen.
Now that they know Gerald wasn't the one they were out for, it all kind of brings them to the very beginning. but they had a handyman with them, Gerald. Working on the Frash's property for some time, Gerald, however, gave a little detail that will later help the investigators in their quest.
So we were able to rule Gerald out as a prime suspect in the case.
While we were talking to Gerald Gardner, he made a comment that really grabbed our attention.
Gerald, nevertheless, told investigators that all of the perfect life the Frashs painted was only a mirage from the real deal. Their marriage was already hitting the rocks due to the multiple extramarital affairs Adam was involved in.
He knew this family. He had been working for Samra and this family for the last 5 years. He tells us the relationship between Adam and Samra, that it wasn't what it seemed to be.
As time went on, you could tell that Adam and Samira were starting to fight a little bit more. And these weren't quiet battles. These were yelling and screaming matches.
In the long run, Samira was granted custody of the children. Upon learning about these shocking revelations, authorities had to track the location of Adam and the children quickly, or it could be too late.
And we actually learned that she was awarded custody of the children. He's kicked out of the marital home.
There was a court order in place. Adam legally was not allowed to possess or have custody of those children.
With the authorities putting in work to find them, they succeeded in the search, and they found him and his children.
We were able to locate Adam Frash and his 2 young daughters at a residence he owns in Panama City, Florida.
Surprisingly, when found, Adam asked the most shocking question, which left detectives wondering if he actually knew more about the death of his wife.
At that point, nobody asked Adam a question. And he goes, "Is this about my wife? Is she dead?" That was extremely suspicious.
The detectives obviously knew Samira was dead, but how in the world did Adam find out? He was then taken in for questioning. The authorities questioned how he got to know about his wife's death. What he says will shock you.
And when my friend called me Kendall and told me, that's how I kind of knew. Yes, sir. It was actually pretty good.
Okay, well, so what happened when y'all get to the house?
She started drinking champagne.
Did she drink anything like that?
No.
How much do you think she had to drink?
I would say close to a couple bottles of champagne.
Adam said he left the residence and exited the neighborhood of Golden Eagle at 8 o'clock in the morning, traveling to Panama City. Was she alive when Adam left or not?
I'm worried that she may have tripped on the water hose that was out there or something.
How did you know that this looked like somebody tripped and fell into the pool? Why would you even bring that up?
Something wasn't adding up.
During the interrogation section, the authorities noticed that Adam had a strange scratch on his face, and when they asked him about it, he told them. This answer, however, was a red flag for the detectives. They imagined how a 10-month-old child would have such strong nails to create such a scratch. Meanwhile, a couple of days into the investigation, one of the neighbors had something to say that was substantial to the case.
The news was that a body had been found in a swimming pool. And then as I started to read into it more, so had like 10 to 12 cars always parked in their yard. We saw a lady in the yard going into a vehicle kind of by the passenger side, a dark SUV, 4-door, and I feel like she was wearing red pants and a white shirt. We're walking past the house, probably at between 10:25, I'm gonna guess between 10:45 a.m.
Fitting Samra's build.
Samra alive after Adam has left, or we have an unknown black female suspect that we need to find?
The neighbors' statements gave authorities another way where they could channel their investigation. They, however, set out to interrogate families and friends, where they found out that Adam had 3 wives and Samira was only wife number 3.
When Adam met Samra, they fell immediately in love, but he was actually married.
Adam is a serial cheater, and that is putting it lightly. Everywhere Adam went, he had a female that he could call upon. Most of them were exotic dancers.
Samira, who felt betrayed by Adam's constant extramarital affairs, couldn't stand to see her once picture-perfect marriage take a turn of betrayal and loneliness. So she decided it was time to end it all by filing for a divorce.
Adam had always said he wasn't going to cheat anymore, but Samira started to get some suspicions. Adam wasn't around as much, and we stopped working together. To file for divorce in a country where you don't know many people, all by yourself, that's really rough.
One striking thing about the women Adam was having an affair with was they all looked like Samira. They were all tall, slim, and dark. Thus, one can say that Adam had a thing for these kinds of women. So it might actually be possible that the neighbor saw one of these women, or maybe it was Samira. This got the authorities to track down these women to know which one of them got into the Frash's house the same day Samira got killed. Yet things got worse for Adam, or did they?
So we have to track down each one of these women, talk to them, and get their side of the story.
Investigators also found out that Adam was paying for the hotel bills of one of his girlfriends, Erica Tidwell, and Samira knew about this as well.
Samira has essentially taken one of Erica's lifelines away with Adam, and there's a pretty easy motive right there.
Hence, the authorities brought in Erica for questioning. A while ago, the neighbor tells authorities that he spotted a lady in the Frash's compound, and she seemed to be in red pants and a white shirt. Surprisingly, as fate would have it, Erica walked into the investigation room in red pants. Could Erica possibly be the one they were looking for?
Let me ask you this question. You know anything about his lost death? Serious. This is about as real as we can get right now.
Yes, I swear on my life. I don't know anything about it.
We asked her where she was. She did not have an alibi.
Nevertheless, investigators decided to look into the other women while keeping Erica on their list. They decided to interrogate the next woman who fit in the description as well. Her name, Shaquita Carter. Shaquita Carter, however, loved money and flashy things, so that might be a good reason for wanting to take Samira out of the picture as well.
In the interview, she tells us, I was out of town. I was in Dubai.
When the investigators went through her cell phone, they found out it didn't correspond with what she said.
They literally go off the grid around the time of the homicide. Is this our suspect?
So who could the main suspect be? Is it Erica or is it Shaquita? But before jumping to conclusions, detectives wanted to make sure they exhausted the names of every possible suspect from their list. And they tracked down an ex-girlfriend, Martha Moore, who happened to be a one-time nanny in Adam's house. But with Martha, it seemed to be a different ballgame entirely, because Adam had a child with Martha, and that also could have made her want to be the woman inside and not outside.
I have a kid by this guy.
Absolutely.
This guy takes care of me and my child.
Absolutely.
So of course you guys gonna come after me. Of course.
So you got a lot to lose should something happen to that guy.
After verifying each of these women's stories, they found out that they were actually not the main suspects.
Took her right out of town. We were able to confirm it with documentation that Shaquita was out of the country. And Erica, her husband, assisted us with alibying her. They were back together, and he recalled her being home.
And of course, the fact that Erica walked into the investigation room with red pants was...
Coincidence? That's what it ended up being.
Now, all their potential suspects had been ruled out, and they were back to the question, who killed Samira? And just then, they remembered Adam's friend, Kendale Lindsay, who alerted Adam of the ongoing investigation in his house. But what does he have to do in this case?
Like a wingman. Adam's got the money, Kendall's kind of got the float, and when Adam wants to go out of town or spend his money, Kendall's usually with him.
Detectives wondered how Kendale could have found out about a discreet ongoing investigation, and they found it.
That was suspicious. Kendall should not have known that there was a death investigation.
Since Samira thought Kendale had a bad influence on Adam, she made an effort to cut off their friendship. Samira and Lindsay even fought the last night of her life after she accused him of stealing some clothes that had been left in one of Adam's cars, but this only made Kendale hate her even more.
Kendall and Samira did not get along. Samira thought Kendall was responsible for Adam's infidelity. Not the case. Adam was responsible for his own infidelity, but Samira blamed Kendall for all of it. Social life that Kendall grew to know was terminated. There's no more Miami. There's no more Las Vegas. That life is over. If you want a motive, I think you have one.
Finally, Kendale was brought up for interrogation, and what he said shockingly confirmed what the detectives were thinking.
About almost the time I got ready to leave, but that's when I actually found out.
He tells us, I heard from a police buddy that there was an investigation at the scene.
If it was me, they wouldn't have to be looking for the killer because my hand would be still wrapped around her neck like that right there. and that's the truth.
When somebody looks at you and tells you, yeah, if I did this, you'd have found me at the bottom of the pool with my hand still around her neck, you're kind of taken aback.
How I feel about Samara, everybody know it.
You listen to Kendall and you think, man, this guy doesn't like her. This guy has a motive to do it.
Kendall, nevertheless, only turned out to be someone who says things the way he sees and feels about them.
It's a nice morning. You're at the house.
Right.
You don't go anywhere.
Nowhere. I'm just a guy, you just gonna get the raw truth from me, man.
The investigation team, however, is back to square one, without any information or clue about who the suspect might be or who could have possibly wanted Samira dead. Meanwhile, Adam was arrested for violating the child order, but was later released after accepting a plea deal. He, however, went on to carry out the funeral rites of his beloved wife. But only a few people attended Samira's funeral. Even her loved ones weren't there to pay their last respects to her.
During all of this, the investigation's happening and there's still no answer.
It was really frustrating to me. I was really questioning, like, are they ever going to get to the bottom of this?
It was indeed a tough case. The prosecution later joined the investigation team for a proper review of the evidence they have had since the beginning of the case. Just then, they found something so crucial, it stood out and gave the case a whole new turn.
We learned of a cell phone that was located in a diaper bag that traveled with Adam to Panama City. After reviewing that cell phone, we learned of a voicemail where Adam's driving to Panama City. He's trying to call his ex-wife.
And why would he need to check in on her if he had just seen her like 2 hours prior and everything was fine?
You're thinking, is this Adam genuinely concerned about his wife? Or is this somebody laying the groundwork for an alibi?
The investigators kept on recording their discoveries. Just then, 3 weeks after Samira's death, the medical examiner's result was ready.
The autopsy confirmed what we believed. This was a homicide. The autopsy also gave us more evidence to try to figure out what happened.
There was blunt force trauma to both sides of her head, consistent with her being hit with something and then falling and hitting a flat, hard surface.
This would indicate the victim was alive until she was placed in the pool.
Also, the medical report states that Samira's cause of her death, however, was a blunt head trauma and drowning. Now, they have to find out who could have done this. When the detectives also went through Samira's toxicology section of the report, there was one striking detail.
You flash back real quick and you go, wait a minute, Adam said something different.
How much do you think she had to drink?
Close to a couple bottles of champagne.
The report, however, did not correspond with what Adam had told them the day he was brought in for questioning. This also confirmed what the detectives thought about Adam. Detectives also got real evidence to prove Adam was their prime suspect.
Another thing we learned from the medical examiner's report is that under Samara's fingernails was Adam's DNA.
And detectives immediately linked the scratch under Adam's eye to the DNA found on Samira's fingernails, and this was game over for Adam.
Once we found that there was DNA under Samara Frash's fingernails, it certainly seemed to add up that she had scratched him.
Put everything together, Adam is the prime suspect. We felt we had the right person.
But there was a problem. The autopsy couldn't answer a very crucial question that could have finally nailed Adam.
Those findings did not include a time of death. That's because the temperature of the pool, it was quite cold, interfered with the decomposition of the body in such a way that the experts were not able to determine how long it had been since she'd been murdered.
Detectives were really concerned and worried all at the same time, especially since a neighbor attested to seeing someone who he described to fit Samira at around 10:30 in the morning of the murder. On the other hand, CCTV footage shows Adam leaving the house by 8 in the morning.
So if we had had the time of death established as pre-8 a.m., then we could have definitively proved that the neighbor was incorrect.
It wasn't until a neighbor came up and said, I think I saw somebody at that house, that the case took another turn.
Does this mean Adam didn't kill his wife and back to square one? As the team came together, trying to build a strong case against Adam Frash, they got startling news.
I get a call one day from the FBI that Mr. Frash's office has been searched.
Adam found himself under a secondary investigation, totally separate from ours. There was a federal investigation into several $1 million worth of fraud.
It was certain that Adam Frash got his exuberant lifestyle from overbilling for services he didn't provide. Although he was investigated, Adam, however, was never charged in connection to the alleged fraud.
Doctors make a lot of money, but to have that many cars and the different houses, he has to be doing something else.
When I found out about the Medicare fraud situation, I was like, bingo. That's where all the funding came from.
After gathering all the evidence they had gotten, detectives believed they could carry on with the trial, and so Adam was arrested, but this time for murder.
It's hard to believe that your one friend could have murdered your other friend. It's such a strange thing to even think about.
It blew my mind. All I could think about was what went wrong.
Nevertheless, prosecutors have what one would call a slim chance with this case because there was no actual evidence pointing Adam to the murder.
It was an uphill battle.
Suddenly, detectives got what they needed, thanks to Adam.
Adam Frosch, he loves to talk. And he makes the mistake of talking to the wrong person.
Adam is incarcerated. He starts having a conversation with another inmate, Dale Folsom.
Dale is a 40-time convicted felon. He was in and out of jail all the time and would frequently want to give up information to try to help himself.
The fight that occurred between he and Samara, he talks about knocking Samara out, panicking, and throwing her in the pool. Dale was going to get a bond. And Adam asked Dale, well, hey, man, if you're going to go get a bond, you go fishing at my house. There's a lake in my backyard. But while you're there, can you remove some golf clubs from my house? Do not let them get found.
And the detectives wanted to see for themselves, so they set out to Frash's house once more.
The family members had disposed of a lot of the property in the house, so we had no idea if these items would still remain.
Surprisingly, when detectives got there, they found 2 golf clubs there. This finding, however, corresponded with what Dale, the jailhouse informant, had told them. And to confirm their fears, the golf club had Samira's DNA on it.
I thought, could this be our murder weapon?
We thought, this is going to be the blunt force trauma. But then the medical examiner says, nope, not this. Not a golf club.
She thought that the instrument used to strike Samara would have been more consistent with something like a fist. So maybe he struck her with the golf club, but it just wasn't the thing that inflicted the fatal blow. I do think it was used somehow in the homicide.
In the eyes of the law, this case is circumstantial. And circumstantial cases do not generally have a lot of success. We were concerned that Adam was going to get away with this.
About 3 years after Samira's murder, Adam Frash stands trial for the murder of his wife. At his trial, prosecutors focused on the couple's volatile relationship, scratches seen on Adam's face, body shortly after the murder, and the testimony of Dale Folsom.
This case has all those elements that you see in a movie. Betrayal, lies, money, just everything.
Have you ever been convicted of a felony or crime of dishonesty?
Yes, ma'am, about 40 times.
40 times?
She fell, and then he said he checked on her a little bit later and realized what had happened and said he didn't mean to kill her.
Who had the motive to kill this woman? Based on everything you know about their lives. Only one person.
We wanted to make clear nothing else fits here. When you put it all together, it all points to Adam Frosch.
The defense struck back by challenging the prosecution's timeline. They pointed to testimony from a neighbor who reported seeing a tall black woman outside the family's home around 10:30 a.m., which of course was several hours after Adam had left the property that day with the children.
I had been laying awake at night for 3 years thinking about that the neighbor saw what he thinks he saw, then Adam Frosch is not guilty.
You walked by between 10:25 and 10:45. Did you see anybody in the driveway of that house?
We did.
And who did you see, or what did you observe?
I saw a woman, African American, tall, dark hair, thin.
Matt Christensen just was unshakable that he had seen this person that looked like Samara Frosch. He placed Samara Frosch as potentially being alive, while Adam Frosch would have been en route or in Panama City.
I'm 100% sure that I saw a woman in front of that house during that time frame.
They also brought in their own forensic pathologist, who testified that Samira had likely died after 8 a.m., noting that there was no rigor mortis or wrinkling on her fingers or toes to suggest a lengthy time in the water.
Her body temperature was down. She had no wrinkling of the fingers or toes.
What you have is an awful lot of circumstantial evidence and speculation by the prosecutor as to what went on. When did she die? Proof beyond a reasonable doubt in this case. Details, specifically the time of death.
But all of the evidence they had wasn't enough to convince the jury, and after just 90 minutes of deliberations, a verdict was made that changed Adam and his children's lives forever.
You're sitting there, and you don't know which way it's going to go. And we believe the only person she had ended up taking her life.
My heart dropped to my stomach. Like, what does this mean? I've had misdemeanor DUI trials that had longer deliberations than this case.
State of Florida versus Adam Frosch, with the jury find as follows. As the indictment, the defendant is guilty of first-degree murder.
It was awesome when I heard the words guilty.
When the words guilty came out, I looked over at Adam, and you could sense the ultimate defeat.
Finally, he was going to pay for the life he had taken.
Obviously, there's this rush of relief that he will rightly spend the rest of his life in prison answering for his crime.
Adam's relatives continued to nurture Frash's 2 daughters, as they would be left without the care and love of both parents. However, the death of Samira will forever leave a scar in the hearts of her family and loved ones.
Thinking about their 2 girls, this verdict means that neither parent is going to be involved in their lives.